New ballistic weapons, chemical gas, higher velocity rifle cartridges, and new improved machine guns caused new complex injuries to the human body that needed new surgical techniques in areas like orthopedics and plastic surgery. Medical technology was improving during a time when there was suddenly a lot of disease, injury, and death. It is important to point out that this war brought not only physical injuries that hadn't been seen before, but it also created severe psychological wounds like PTSD. One German army study in 1917 found that 75% of all wounds came from artillery shells, which have developed into weapons of destruction. The bodies were invaded with bullets and shrapnel from grenades, whose trauma caused as many internal injuries as external ones. Before World War I, plastic surgery was rarely practiced as a specialism. The circumstances of trench warfare caused a dramatic rise in the number of facial injuries in the soldiers, which created a separate medical field focused only on this. Shells filled with shrapnel were to blame for many of these facial and head wounds, as they were specifically designed to cause maximum damage in the body. Hot flying metal could tear through flesh and could even rip faces off entirely. Plastic surgery also became less dangerous thanks to the improvements in general anesthetic and in asepsis, which is the absence of bacteria or virus. The most influential figure in facial reconstruction was Harold Gillis, who's often referred to as the father of plastic surgery because many of the techniques he used back then are still used in modern reconstructive surgeries. The Queen's Hospital was founded by him, and it was the first hospital dedicated to the treatment of facial injuries. Gillis was revolutionary in this field because of his desire to restore normal appearance rather than functionality, as he wanted to make patients look as similar to their pre-injured state as possible. He is also known for his use of the tubed pedicle technique, which was basically partially removing tissue from its original site so it retained a blood supply during transfer to another site, and it reduced the risk of infection. This allowed large quantities of still living skin to be transferred from one section of the body to the other. Orthopedics is a branch of medicine that focuses on conditions involving the musculoskeletal system. The First World War had a huge impact on orthopedic medicine, especially in Germany, because, as I said before, the wounds of this war were very different from the injuries the doctors had typically faced in peacetime. So whole new areas of specialty were opened up. Gunshot fractures, their retraction, methods of transport, treatment, prevention of deformity, restoration of function, and rehabilitation were all challenges which placed high demands on orthopedic techniques. The wartime experiences of doctors in the battlefields and behind the lines inspired them to transform their profession, because the high incidence of severe injury among the German soldiers prompted the nation's orthopedists to redirect their approach toward the treatment and rehabilitation of trauma victims, a move that helped them create a new sphere of medical expertise for themselves. For German orthopedists, we can say that World War I developed into a professional revolution in medical care and prosthetic technology. Orthopedists were still limited by the pre-war technology, so prosthetics used to be custom-made for the wealthy who could afford it, but that changed with the big rise in demand for artificial limbs from the soldiers. Due to this, they quickly realized that if they were going to restore the bodies of the disabled soldiers, they were going to need more than the prosthetics that were available before the war. So they developed a wide variety of new artificial limbs, like arms, hands, and legs, but with the capability of heavy work. Over the course of the war, they revolutionized the design and manufacture of prosthetics, not simply by healing the body, but restoring it. And restoring a soldier's ability to work became the primary goal of prosthetic design, rather than restoring his physical appearance. Consequently, orthopedists had to develop a modern system of medical rehabilitation. Knowledge of key medical practices was poor compared to today's medicine, but the outbreak of the war provided a massive opportunity to test new treatments. Just like Marie Curie did with her daughter, Irene, because they went along the front line and they installed X-ray machines that were never used in such scale before. They invented a mobile X-ray unit called the Little Curie, and they trained 150 women to operate it. Blood transfusion in the war refined techniques that were already in use. So they realized that direct transfusion from donor to recipient was going to be impractical for such wide use, especially on the front lines, and this made them develop a new technique, which was blood being collected and stored before the battles occurred, and this significantly widened the scope of transfusion. Now, blood could be stored up for up to 26 days without any negative effects and could be transported to where it was required. As a result of this, by 1918, transfusions were being performed much closer to the front lines than clearing stations. To conclude, we can say that the science and technology of this war simultaneously destroyed and recreated the human body. Not only did new weapons impact on new kinds of injuries, but they also changed operational strategies and battlefield tactics. Since then, historians of medicine have been examining more closely the impact of the First World War on developments in modern medicine. Studies have pointed out that the war provided an experimental laboratory for developments in such fields as pathological research, typhoid vaccinations, venereal disease, and pulmonary conditions. Also, the specialization of orthopedics, the revolution in artificial limb design, the creation of modern rehabilitation, and the reconceptualization of the disabled body from the soldiers that returned home were all phenomena which happened because of the experience of war. we can say that in the cases of orthopedic specialization and in the development of modern artificial limbs, the word was good for medicine, because if we hadn't had this kind of severe injuries, a lot of techniques wouldn't be invented in the first place. So this word was obviously bad, but in a way it was very good for the development of medical technology.